morning, now. Now then, let the room come to rest, not the mind racing, not the personality arranging itself to look reverent. Let the inward ear appear. Something here has to be discerned between the lines. The physical ear can never hear truth any more than the physical tongue can utter truth. Truth is not in the vibration of air. It is not in the syllables. It is in the stillness behind them. Listen then, not to me, but through me. My kingdom is not of this world. That is not a sentence for your mind to memorize. That is not theology to argue in the car going home. That is a door for consciousness. It opens when the mind stops claiming it understands. It opens when the self gives up its project. Otherwise you will hear the words, you will even like them, and go right on living as if the master came to manage your weather, your health, your bank book, your enemies, your headlines. Now then, the confusion we end today is simple to name and hard to admit. We have been praying as if the Christ offered an upgrade to the human scene. We have been asking as if the kingdom were a celestial repair shop, and God the great mechanic. Fix this, improve that, remove him, promote me. And then, after our religious labor, we wonder why anxiety stays, why bargaining continues, why exhaustion sets in. It must, because to pray within the framework of this world is to pray outside the kingdom altogether. My kingdom is not of this world, not of it, not even of a better one. If you miss that, your prayer becomes a transaction with a deity you imagine lives inside the flux of circumstance. He does not. Do not take that as harshness. Take it as mercy. If God governed the human picture would not be what it is. But we are not there yet. Now, this is the premise. There is another realm with another government, and prayer is not a reaching out to make this realm behave. Prayer is an entering into that realm which already is. Can the physical ear hear that? No, nobody. Nobody ever heard that with a physical ear. It is discerned. It is felt in a place quieter than thought. It is known in a moment when the grasping stops, when the breath settles, when the self no longer insists. Now, hear the sentence again, but not as an old verse on a tired page. My kingdom is not of this world. Do you notice the present tense? Is, not shall be. Not was once upon a time in Galilee. Is. You cannot bring that is into yesterday. You cannot project that is into tomorrow. The doorway is now, and if you remain in thinking about improving the human scene, you are postponing the only now in which the door stands open. I am not inviting you to indifference. I am inviting you to accuracy. There is no spiritual peace to be had by rearranging shadows. There is no rest for the soul in winning one more argument with life. The Master did not come to add your religion to your ambitions. He came to reveal a kingdom that cannot be seen by the eye, bought with money, defended with armies, or secured with a clever plan. It must be entered, and the entry is within. So let us be honest with ourselves. Let us drop the strain. If you came today to learn how to get God to do your will more efficiently, you will be disappointed. But if you came to consent, to let go, to let be, to let grace be grace, you will find that this single line, rightly heard, ends the long confusion. For prayer, then, is not asking, it is awakening. It is not pleading, it is perceiving. It is not managing, it is moving out of this world's frame and into the kingdom that is. Now then, be still enough to let the door be a door and not a doctrine. And as you do, notice how quietly the bargaining mind grows silent, and how a different government begins to make itself felt where you are. Now then, let us say it as the Master said it, and then remove every escape hatch the mind would build. My kingdom is not of this world, not of this world, not even an improved this world, not even a perfect this world. Hear the latter, feel it take away your last bargaining chip. Because if you leave yourself one small corner of hope that the kingdom is a cleaner version of the human scene, you will spend the rest of your religious life trying to shampoo shadows and call it spirituality. What is this world? Not merely the wicked headlines you dislike, not merely the poverty there and the disease here. This world is the whole theater of cause and effect, the seesaw of up and down. It is the weather of opinion, reputation won and lost, health threatened, restored, threatened, again. Supply panicked over in the morning, relieved by noon, anxious again by night. Family dramas rehearsed for years, political tides washing over your hope and then receding, taking your peace with them. It is the glorious headline about your team and tomorrow's scandal about your team. It is applause and it is blame. Do not exclude the religious pieces you like. Successful campaigns, big offerings, full pews, stirring music, even the story that your prayer worked because the symptoms stopped. All of that is this world, the lovely side, the ugly side, the neutral side, the whole wheel. Now I say to you with the certainty of one who has watched his own hope run in circles, God does not enter that wheel to push it for you. There is no God in the rotation of appearance and disappearance. There is no God in the ledger of gain and loss. There is no God in reputation, whether praised or slandered. Those are pictures moving on a screen. If you try to make God one of the moving parts, you will always feel betrayed by the next frame. And then you will call that betrayal delay. Then you will call it a closed heaven. Then you will accuse yourself, or worse, accuse your neighbor. The mistake is not in God. The mistake is the target you chose. Two governments, and only two. The government of cause and effect, and the government of grace. The first you already know. Push and get. Don't push and lose. Plant and maybe harvest. Sicken and maybe recover. Try harder and tire. Succeed and fear failing. That is the law of the wheel. The second is the government of being, where what is governs what appears, and not the other way around. Where life is the fact, and health is its natural radiation. Where completeness is the fact, and supply is its natural form. Where love is the fact, and human relationships rearrange themselves without your management. You cannot serve both. You cannot live by the wheel 6 days and then on the 7th call it grace. You cannot pray for the wheel to spin in your favor and in the same breath enter the kingdom. Either you are praying to change appearances or you are consenting to a different government. Choose. Choose now. The minute you hedge, you are back on the seesaw and the stomach drops again. Do you see the hidden disappointment? We have prayed for better weather, better test results, better contracts, better temperaments. And when the picture did not bend quickly, we marked it down as unanswered prayer. We said God is far, or God is slow, or God has reasons we can't fathom. Nonsense. Nobody in this room has ever been refused by God. We aimed at the wrong object and then blamed the light for not being a shadow. We tried to draft grace into a campaign to correct effects. We called that prayer. It is not prayer, it is spiritualized human will. And because delays are built into the wheel itself, its very fabric is time and sequence, your heart kept being bruised by your own misdirection. My kingdom is not of this world, not even an improved this world, not even a perfect this world. What would a perfect this world be? An endless string of favorable reports? An unbroken reputation? Bodies that never so much as sneeze? A bank account that always reads the same number you like? That is still the wheel. The fear of change is already within it. The vigilance to protect it is already the confession of insecurity. You would have to watch the door and guard the vault and check the mirror every hour. That is not heaven. That is a better prison. Kingdom means a realm with a king and a law, another government. In that government, life is not leveraged by time, outcomes, or opinions. There is no delay because there is no sequence in spirit. There is no waiting for proof because presence is the proof. There is no argument to win because the argument has no standing. There is no reputation to repair because there is no personal self to parade. There is only I am. Not I will be when the biopsy comes back. Not I was when they loved me more. I am. Outside the wheel, before it, after it, governing it without touching it. That is the government of grace. You ask, does that mean the body never heals, the bank account never fills, the child never calls? You ask with a tender heart. Listen rightly, the kingdom is not a refusal of form. It is the refusal to give form your God seat. Under grace, forms will appear as they must. Healing as a byproduct of life's wholeness, supply as the posture of completeness, reconciliation as the natural odor of love. But the measure of God is never the sequence of events. The measure of God is God. And when you abide under that government, the pressure to prove it by scenes evaporates. Your prayer ceases being a weather report and becomes a resting in what is. This is not theory. This is rescue. If you keep dragging your inner life back to the wheel, did I get it? Did I lose it? What does this mean? You will remain disappointed in a God who needs no defense. But if you withdraw the insistence that the screen validate your faith on your timetable, you will feel the government shift. You will sense the difference between manipulating clouds and standing in the sun. It is as actual as walking out of a noisy room and realizing that the noise was not you. It is as simple as not answering a quarrel and discovering that the quarrel was feeding on your reply. Now then, let us be severe with ourselves for the sake of freedom. Stop baptizing your ambitions as spiritual because you add in Jesus' name to them. Stop calling your panic discernment. Stop dressing your fear in robes and calling it zeal. This world is the realm of personality and project. You do not have to hate it. You do have to stop asking it to yield God. It cannot. It never will. Those that worship God must worship in spirit and in truth, not in the counting house, not in the applause meter, not in the rumor mill, in spirit, in truth. And the relief, it is immediate when you accept the binary without compromise. You are no longer grading God by outcomes. You are no longer bargaining with hours and days. You are no longer promising to behave if the picture improves by Friday. You stand where the government is grace and let grace be grace. That is the end of confusion. That is the end of the hidden grievance against heaven. From here you will understand why, if God governed the human scene would not look as it does. But we will not infer God from events. We will enter God, and then events like weather will pass across a sky that does not move. Now then, let me put the edge where it belongs and keep the heart soft while I do it. If God governed the human scene would not look like this. Do not rush past that because it offends the theology you were handed. Look at a century, any century. Look at this week, any week. Good people are struck down. Selfish ones are promoted. A mother prays and buries a child. A cheat prays and secures a contract. The rain falls on the just and the unjust, and the drought does too. You cannot prove God by pointing at the roulette wheel and counting who won and who lost. Suffering is not distributed by righteousness. Reward is not allocated by devotion. If you try to make the human picture the scoreboard of God, you will stay angry with heaven and suspicious of your neighbor, and every disappointment in the picture will feel like a refusal from God. It is not. I am not cold to your hurt. I am not indifferent to your fear. I have stood at graves and hospital beds and courtrooms and watched what the mind calls injustice. But truth is not altered by my tears or yours. The admission we must make for the sake of freedom is this: God is not in the shifting pictures. God is not in the traffic of events. God is not inside the rise and fall of bodies, reputations, markets, nations. My kingdom is not of this world, not even of a better this world. Therefore, stop laying your ear against the news and calling it the whisper of God. Stop drawing lines from event to event and naming the crooked line His will. It is cruelty to your own soul to build faith on a weather report. Now, do you see the mechanism of confusion? We watch the movie and say, when the ending turns beautiful, then I will know God was here, or the ending was cruel, so God must be far. And then we bargain with the script. If you fix this scene, I will trust. If you spare me that scene, I will serve. That is not worship. That is trading with the projector, and the projector does not love you. The projector has no mercy and no malice. It only runs film. You are asking an engine to be a father. You are asking a sequence to be a savior. Those that worship God must worship in spirit and in truth, not in the rush of outcomes, not in the applause of a crowd, not in the verdict of a laboratory, in spirit, in truth. What then is God's will, if not the next event? God's will is God being God. God's will is the presence of grace governing itself as life, as love, as being, here. Not as the human mind imagines success, not as the human heart demands rescue on Tuesday at 4. When you exit the picture frame of time and cause and effect, when you stop measuring by what appears and disappears, the will of God is known as peace, as an inner rightness that needs no signature from the world. It is not that the frame suddenly stops changing. It is that you have withdrawn the power of judgment from it. The earth melted before the presence, not because the correct event happened, but because presence is the event. Now then, let us be honest enough to stop insulting God with our negotiations. Heal me, and I will praise you. Prosper me, and I will tithe. Vindicate me, and I will forgive. Nobody in this room has ever kept such a bargain, even when the picture briefly complied. And do you know why? Because bargains are made by fear, and fear is a confession. I am doing this without God. When you stop hunting God in outcomes, you stop bargaining with the future. You stop living against the deadline of relief. You drop the conditional life. When this changes, then I will be at peace. And you begin to taste the unconditional presence. I am, therefore, peace. The practical consequence is immediate and measurable in the only way that matters. Your heart rate slows, your breath finds you, your jaw unclenches, and the room you are actually in becomes livable. You have not fixed the world. You have stopped asking it to be God. And in that very not asking, the government shifts. Guidance does not arrive as a headline. It rises as a knowing without argument. Supply does not appear as the conquest of a deal. It unfolds as the natural form of completeness. Health does not come as a victory against an enemy. It shows as the radiation of life where you abide. But hear me, these are not proofs we collect to show that God answered. These are byproducts of leaving the frame. We do not infer the kingdom from their arriving. We enter the kingdom and watch these arrive and depart as weather, blessing us, yes, but never being our God. You ask, how do I live tomorrow if I refuse to count tomorrow's result as divine or not divine? You live as one who is governed, not as one who is managing. You live in the now, that is, and you let grace be grace. You do what is before you without leaning on outcomes to certify your being. You forgive without waiting for the apology. You give without checking the ledger for return. You act with integrity not because it pays, but because integrity is what being is when grace governs. Try to imagine living a minute from now. You cannot. Try to imagine squeezing God into the next report. You cannot. The only place God is knowable is here. The only time the kingdom opens is now. The minute you go to results, you leave it. So I say it again and trust that something in you says Amen beyond the ear. My kingdom is not of this world. Therefore we end the old game of reading tea leaves and calling it theology. We end the hidden accusation against heaven every time the picture disappoints us. We lay down the bargains. We consent to presence. And in that consent, the transition begins, not as a theory, not as a hope, but as a government felt. We will not infer God from events. We will enter God, and then events will be events, and you will be free. Now then, let us put the knife right where the nerve is and keep the hand gentle while we do it. If the kingdom is not of this world, what are we doing in prayer? Trying to change this world or consenting to another realm? Be honest, the mind wants a clever middle. I will enter the kingdom, and while I am there, adjust the picture nicely. No, there is no middle. Either you remain in the wheel and negotiate with time, or you leave the wheel and worship in spirit and in truth. Prayer, then, is not a conversation with the projector. It is an entering of the light. Do you see how quickly the old reflex returns? Father, make this turn. Father, prevent that. Father, accelerate this, delay that. That is still the calendar speaking. That is still the manager in you shuffling papers and calling it devotion. The moment you set a schedule for God, you have stepped back into law, cause and effect, fear and responsibility, merit and delay. You are trying to force a better timeline. You have confessed, without knowing it, that you live outside grace and must get grace to visit your hour. Nobody can make that work. Nobody. Prayer is not persuading God to fix the world. Prayer is consenting to the kingdom that is already present. Hear that slowly. Consenting, not constructing, not convincing, not arranging. Consent is surrender without drama. Consent is worship without a wish list. Consent says, you are, I yield. And in that very act, the government changes. Not out there first, in here first. The pressure to achieve an improved sequence loosens. The personal I that carries outcomes on its back releases the strap. You are no longer the foreman of your life. You are the sanctuary in which life is being itself. Those that worship God must worship in spirit and in truth. Petition is aimed at appearances. Worship is aimed at being. Petition watches the clock. Worship abides the now. Petition works with fear. If this doesn't happen, I will not be safe. Worship lives by grace, because thou art, I am. Petition tries to move pieces. Worship lets presence be presence and watches pieces move as they must. The one is management under law, the other is rest under grace. Now do not think I despise the heart that cries out. We have all cried. I have cried. But even the cry can be turned. Instead of, do something to that, let the cry become, let me in. Let me into the government that is not of this world. Let me into the silence where time is not. Let me into the fact of I am. You will find that the very same breath that once bargained is fully capable of bowing. Same lungs, different realm. What then are we doing when we pray? We are not adding holy words to a human agenda. We are not sending orders uphill. We are withdrawing our consent from the wheel and placing it in the kingdom. We are moving from first-person manager to first-person witness. We are letting go the last right to supervise our good. And in that letting go, another order asserts itself. Guidance is no longer a hunt for signs. It is a rightness that needs no argument. Supply is no longer a chase. It is completeness disclosing its form. Health is no longer a battle. It is life radiating where presence abides. But mark me, these are not the objective of prayer. They are the weather of a sky already at peace. How is this done? Not by length, not by eloquence, not by listing all the reasons your case deserves speed. The physical ear cannot hear this, but something in you knows. The minute thought loosens its grip, The minute the personal I stops composing a better speech, a split second of silence appears, and through that infinitesimal opening rushes the truth of being, not words, presence, and the earth. Your tightness, your dread, your stopwatch mentality melts. Not because you secured a promise for Thursday, because you entered the timeless. You ask, but must I never ask? I say, ask rightly. Ask by entering, not by persuading. Ask by consent, not by demand. Your asking becomes this: thy presence is enough. Govern. And then stop. Do not peek. Do not test. Do not run to the window for results. The minute you go to the window, you have left the room. The minute you check the clock, you have rejoined law. Stay. Stay until the bite of urgency is gone, even if it is only a degree less. That degree is the sign you have moved realms. Now then, discipline. Give up the little mental habits that keep you outside the door. Give up composing prayers for audiences, earthly or heavenly. Give up the inner courtroom where you rehearse grievances and call it intercession. Give up the fantasy that if you phrase it more beautifully, God will relent. God is not withholding. God is. The kingdom is. Prayer does not change, is into will be. Prayer places you in is and keeps you there until is changes you. One more point, and it is surgical. In true prayer, you accept once and for all that outcomes are not your ministry. Witness is. You are not responsible to produce harmony. You are responsible to abide where harmony is native. You are not charged to maintain a reputation. You are charged to let the impersonal Christ be itself here, now, without adornment. The result is rest. The fruit is quiet authority. The mark is that you stop arguing with life and begin to bless it by presence alone. So what are we doing in prayer? We are entering. We are consenting to the government not of this world. We are laying down the tools of a manager and taking up the stillness of a worshiper. We are leaving time and its panic in favor of the eternal now, in which grace governs. And from that seat we watch, we witness, we say very little, and life, unmanaged, ungoaded, unbribed, reveals itself as what it has always been when we stop asking it to be God. The occasion for God to be God, here, now. Now then, we come to the narrow gate. If prayer is entering, where is the door? Not in your calendar, not in your memories, not in next week's hope. The door is now, only now, always now. The kingdom is never yesterday and never tomorrow. The kingdom is not a memory of the last sweet meeting. The kingdom is not the promise of a better June. The kingdom is I am, and I am is never late and never early. It is. Try it as an experiment, not with your mind, but with your being. Try to live 5 minutes ago. Go ahead. Return to it and take a breath there. You cannot. 5 minutes ago is a picture, a trace, a story you can tell. It is not a place where life can be lived. It has no oxygen. It has no pulse. It is a vacuum into which the mind pours regret, nostalgia, rehearsed speeches, and saintly self-accusations. I should have. I could have. Why didn't I? But you cannot live there. Nobody. Nobody has ever lived 5 minutes ago. They have only suffered over it. Now try the other side. Try to live 1 minute from now. Reach into it and plant your foot there. You cannot. A minute from now is a complete vacuum. The mind tries to fill it with pictures, worries, strategies, contingency plans, righteous fantasies in which you say the perfect thing and everyone applauds. But you cannot breathe in the future. You cannot drink water there. You cannot worship there. You cannot love there. The future is a canvas on which fear and ambition paint, and every stroke is made of time. But life is not in time. Life is in being. Being is now. Hear the rule and do not soften it. The kingdom of heaven is a state of grace that can only be experienced now. The minute, no, the split second, You drift into yesterday's shadow or tomorrow's rumor. You step out of the kingdom and into mental projection, not into sin in the moral sense, into unreality in the spiritual sense. You leave the government of grace and volunteer for the government of cause and effect, the wheel we spoke of. And the proof is immediate in your body. Tightness, shallow breath. A clock starts ticking behind your eyes. Your prayer, which was worship, becomes negotiation again. When, Lord? How long, Lord? Will you by Thursday? That sound you hear is the door of now closing as you walk away to consult the calendar. Do not condemn yourself. See it cleanly. Most of what we call religious anxiety is nothing but time thinking wearing church clothes. Regret is yesterday rehearsed as piety. Nostalgia is yesterday polished and placed on an altar. Worry is tomorrow baptized as prudence. Planning obsession is tomorrow enthroned as sovereignty. And all of it is life attempted outside of life. We are like people trying to drink from a photograph of a well. We analyze the picture until we are parched. The water is here, now. Now then, what is this now? It is not a technique. It is not breath counting, though breath may help you recognize that you are already here. It is not a posture or a mantra, though words may serve as a bell. Now is spirit being itself where you are. Now is I am, unstretched across before and after. Now is the only altitude at which grace is law. Whenever the rose blooms, it is now. Whenever music is music, it is now. Whenever truth is discerned, it is now. The physical ear can't hear this, the inner ear bows to it. The practice then is disarmingly simple and impossibly strict. When you notice that you are nursing yesterday, say within, gently but with authority, now then, return. Return from the courtroom where you were judge and witness and accused, arguing the old case again. Return from the museum where you were polishing the golden age of your faith, remembering when you were so close to God. Return, because that closeness, if it was real, was not then. It was now, when then was now. And it is available now the same way, by being now. And when you catch yourself forecasting tomorrow, what if, what then, what will I say, how will I pay, when will it change? Say within, now then, return. Return from the boardroom where you sat with fear and drew up contracts for God. Return from the battlefield where you rehearsed a fight that is not happening. Return to the only place where guidance is guidance and not argument. Return to the only place where supply is completeness unfolding and not hustle. Return to the only place where health is life radiating and not an enemy to defeat. Return to now. Do not turn this into spiritual athletics. Do not set a stopwatch and grade your now time. The minute you do, you have rejoined law and left grace. The minute you ask, how long have I stayed present? You have stepped 1 minute into tomorrow to collect a medal. The point is not duration. The point is entry. A split second of honest now will melt more earth than an hour of managed presence. Enter and enter again. That is the discipline, not heroism, faithfulness. You say, but what of responsibilities? What of calendars and trains and children to pick up and meetings at 10? You are not being asked to abandon order. You are being invited to relocate identity. You can write 10 o'clock on a page under grace. You cannot live at 10 o'clock before it arrives. Under grace you prepare, but you do not pre-live. Under grace you remember, but you do not relive. Under grace action is done now when it is time to do it, and thought is quiet now when there is nothing to do. That is why the yoke is easy and the burden light. The weight of pretending to live in the past or the future is gone. Now I must say a hard word that will save you years. The minute you seek spiritual proof from yesterday's testimony or tomorrow's expectation, you have built an idol out of time. Yesterday's testimony is beautiful as witness to what is. It is poison when worshipped as what was. Tomorrow's expectation is natural as hope in what is. It is torment when enforced as what must be. Those that worship God must worship in spirit and in truth, which is to say, in now. What happens as you live this? The nervous system learns your new government. The room settles without explanation. The debate in your head loses counsel for lack of audience. Guidance does not march in from the future. It flowers from being. Supply does not swim up from tomorrow. It flows from completeness. Health does not resurrect from yesterday. It shines from life. But do not watch for these as signals that you are on schedule. Do not make results by noon your barometer. That is tomorrow again. Stay with the secret. Presence is the event. Presence is the will. Presence is the kingdom, and it is not of this world's time. So we make this our simple, stern practice. Catch time thinking in the act and answer it with, now then, return. Not to perform, to relocate, not to improve the picture, to abide where grace is government. You will do this 100 times in an hour some days. Fine, excellent. Each return is a leaving of Egypt. Each return is a refusal to live in a vacuum. Each return is a tiny exodus from law to grace. And little by little, or suddenly, at midnight, you discover that now is not a slice in a line. It is the whole. It holds yesterday and tomorrow the way the sky holds weather, without being moved by it. And you in the sky become very calm. You become quietly sure. You become available to be a blessing, because you are no longer running between clocks. You are home. Now then, let us speak plainly, because this will save you from years of spiritual gymnastics. Fear is not a mood you must manage. Fear is a confession. It says, I am doing this without God. I must secure this by myself. That is all fear ever says when you listen beneath its noise. Do not dress it in holy language. Do not call it prudence or motherly concern or responsible leadership or the tragic sensitivity of your temperament. Fear is the signal that the personal sense of I has climbed back into the pilot's seat and seized the wheel of a plane it does not know how to fly. Tie this to what we have learned. My kingdom is not of this world. The minute you look to this world for your safety, this calendar, this diagnosis, this bill, this reputation, you have confessed that your government is here. The law of cause and effect returns. Deadlines become deities, people become threats or saviors, and your body tells on you. Shoulders rise, breath shortens, thought hurries into the future and rummages through yesterdays for proof. That is fear, not the feeling in your stomach. Those are weather patterns. The premise behind it, I must make this turn or I am lost. If God governed the human scene would not look like this. Therefore, fear is proof that you are asking the human scene to be your God and hurrying to manage it accordingly. Do not misunderstand me. Nobody is asked to become fearless by force. We are not playing stoic. We are not tightening our jaw and declaring ourselves brave while still worshiping tomorrow's outcome. That is vanity under a halo. What we are asked to do is simpler, sterner, and kinder. Stop honoring fear's premise. When fear speaks, do not kneel, do not argue, do not pet it. Hear what it is saying, I must, and then ask, who is this I? Is it the I that lives by clocks and contracts and polls? Is it the I that expects applause as proof of righteousness? Is it the I that measures love by protection from pain? If it is, then know this, that I is the one outside the kingdom, and every one of its confessions will be fear. Now, how does this turn? Not by lecturing yourself with better sentences, not by cobbling together affirmations as a leash for panic. The turn happens when the personal sense loosens, when the I that is managing says, without drama, I yield. A split second of silence, just that, rushes the truth, not words. Presence. In that infinitesimal surrender, the government changes. The earth, by which I mean your compulsion to arrange results, melts. No angel descends with a contract promising Thursday at 4. Something better happens. You are relieved of authorship. You stop being the foreman of your own good. And because authorship and anxiety are twins, one cannot remain when the other is gone. You ask, but what if the thing I fear is truly serious? And I say, the world calls many things serious. Life, loss, money, body, children, courts. I know, I have been there. But seriousness is not a realm. It is an intensity of the same premise. And the correction is the same. Return. Return not to a sentence merely, but to the seat where the sentence points. I am. Not I will be safe when, not I was safe then, I am. Fear cannot breathe there because fear is made of time. It needs a tomorrow to haunt and a yesterday to indict. In I am, there is no space for its operations. The rose does not tremble thinking of winter when it opens. It opens because now is the law of its being. So take it to practice in the manner of integrity and music, by principle, before proof. When fear rises, name it correctly. This is the personal I trying to manage life. Then very simply, now then, return. Do not try to negotiate a reduced sentence with fear. Do not say, Mary, if I meditate for 15 minutes, will you let me sleep? That is bargaining with the projector. The projector has no mercy or malice. It only runs film. We do not trade with it. We leave the theater. We step into spirit and let grace be government. In that government, guidance appears as rightness, not as a set of contingencies. In that government, supply reveals itself as completeness unfolding, not as a rescue mission. In that government, health is life radiant, not a duel with an enemy. But hear me again. These are not promises made to calm fear. These are descriptions of how life functions when fear's premise, I alone must, is no longer believed. Some of you will say, but fear keeps me alert. That is a lie taught by exhaustion. Alertness under fear is vigilance in a haunted house. You will check windows 100 times and miss the quiet door that opens within. True alertness is presence, quiet, unhurried, exact, able to see the next step because it is not scanning 1,000 imaginary staircases. The minute I relaxes, attention is freed from policing the future and becomes available to receive the moment's instruction. That is why, under grace, action is clean and timely, not because you controlled more, because you controlled less. And some of you will say, I can't help it, fear just comes. Of course the weather comes, the body remembers habits, the mind runs paths it has paved. Nobody holds that against you, but we are not studying to stop weather. We are learning not to make weather our God. When fear visits, let it find you at home in the kingdom. Let it knock and hear you answer from the inner room, I am. It will not know what to do with that. It feeds on arguments and bargains. It starves in silence. So let this be the uncompromising mercy we extend to ourselves. Whenever fear appears, we do not shame it. We do not worship it. We use it. We use it as a bell that rings, return. We hear its confession. I'm doing this without God, and we answer with our own, thy presence is enough. And we stay a split second longer than last time if that is all we have, until the rightness returns, until the I is light again, until the government is grace again. Fear is the signal, yield is the door. And on the other side of that door is the same kingdom we have been speaking of all along, never yesterday, never tomorrow, always now, quietly governing a life that is still in this world, but not of it. Now then, this is the place where everything we have been saying must either become your life or become more vocabulary. The physical ear can never hear truth any more than the physical tongue can utter truth. Nobody, Nobody has ever spoken truth into being with syllables. Words are the scaffolding, not the house. What builds the house is a moment that has no sound in it. When a thought stops, when there is a split second of uncovered awareness, through that infinitesimal opening rushes the truth. Not a correct sentence about truth, but the spirit itself. And then the earth melted. Do not make this mystical by stretching it into a trance. We are not seeking hours of blankness. We are not going into catatonic holiness. The split second is exactly that, a crack in mental motion, a pause between one self-explanation and the next, like the instant a camera shutter opens to light. Quick, bare, enough. In that sliver where the inner argument ceases, reality, which has been here all along, makes itself felt, not invented, not invoked, revealed. What then is this silence? It is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of self-assertion. It is not dullness. It is the end of managing. It is not the peace you paste on your face. It is the end of bargaining for a future. It is not a long, noble breath designed to impress your nervous system. It is a breath that is nobody's, taken without ownership, found to be already moving. In that ownerless instant, the personal I steps back a fraction, and grace finds no obstruction. Let me tell you what it is not, so you will not waste years. It is not repeating correct phrases until the syllables hypnotize you. A statement of truth is a lamp. It is not the light. Use it and then let it go. It is not an emotional swell. Tears may come, they may not. Warmth may spread, it may not. Feeling is weather. Revelation is the sky. It is not forcing the mind to be still as if you are wrestling a dog to the ground. The mind that forces is the same mind that argued. Two dogs, same fight. This silence is the moment you are no longer litigating your life, no longer prosecuting fear, no longer defending hope, no longer calling witnesses named yesterday and tomorrow. Court adjourned. The judge leaves. In that emptied courtroom, presence stands up, not as a person but as is. Now then, how to practice what cannot be manufactured? By consent, not by construction. You sit or you walk or you stand in a crowded line. It does not matter. You notice the familiar machinery begin, plans, regrets, rehearsals, and you answer, now then, return. Let the sentence you were building end one word early. Let the breath you were holding release without a flourish. Let your eyes rest not on a special object, but on the fact that you are looking. And then do not reach. Do not reach into words. Do not reach into feeling. Let the reaching hand fall open, even for half a heartbeat. That is the crack. That is the split second. The truth, needing no invitation and asking no permission, floods the space your reaching used to occupy. You will say, but I heard nothing. Of course you did not. The physical ear cannot hear this. You may say, but I did not think a single holy thought. Correct. The physical tongue cannot utter this. What comes in that second is not a message to parse. It is being apprehended. It registers as rightness before it names itself. It registers as a subtle yield in the belly, a lowering of the shoulders, a breath that empties on its own and does not hunt for the next. It registers as the absence of the clock you were wearing behind your eyes. It registers as recognition. Oh, presence, not a sentence, a fact. Do not turn and make a trophy out of it. The minute you say, that was a good one, let me get another just like it, you are back at the window, looking for Thursday's delivery. Do not grade your silence. Do not export it into the future. Enter and let it be spent. Enter again and let that be spent. Little splinters of unowned awareness threaded through a day will accomplish what a strained hour cannot, because grace requires only the absence of the doer to be government. Offer it a second and it rules that second. Offer it a minute and it rules that minute. But the rule is the same. We are not seeking an answer in words. We are yielding to the presence that reveals the kingdom already here. Use your helps, but refuse to be owned by them. A sentence may walk you to the door. Thy presence is enough. Good. Now let the sentence end. Let silence finish it. A psalm may still your heart. Good. Now let the psalm lift away and leave you with the one who wrote none of it yet is all of it. Even the sacred sound I am must, at the crucial instant, be released so that the am is unmodified, unspoken, unclaimed. That is worship in spirit and in truth. Be still and know. Not be still and think. Not be still and tremble for a sign. No. Knowledge in spirit is not acquired. It is uncovered when the knower stops pretending to be separate from what is known. Between the notes of music there are rests, and without those little silences there is no melody, only noise. Between your thoughts there are rests, not many at first, perhaps, but one will come if you will stop composing your safety. Seize it? No. Receive it. Let the rest have you. In that rest, the melody that was always there plays itself, and you find you were never the musician making life happen. You were the room in which it sounded. Now then, a caution that protects the purity of this. Do not use silence as a device to get results in the human scene. That is time thinking in monk's robes. If I am very still, will tomorrow obey? No, tomorrow is outside the kingdom. We are not quiet to move pieces. We are quiet because God is. We are quiet because truth is not in words. We are quiet because in the cessation of inner argument, the invisible government is felt, and once felt, it requires no proofs. And what follows? Often nothing dramatic, sometimes tears, sometimes laughter, sometimes the simple, miraculous ordinariness of washing a dish without a supervisor in your head. But whether weather is sunny or gray, the atmosphere is altered. The argument is finished for now. Peace is not achieved. It is uncovered. Guidance does not arrive. It is noticed. Supply does not march in from the future. The enoughness of being makes your next step plain. Health is not wrestled from an enemy. Life is found to be present. All of this as byproduct, not as prize. So we make a life of these small obediences. 100 times a day the mind begins its sermon. 100 times a day we let one word be missing. 100 times a day the hand reaches. 100 times a day it falls open. That is the mechanism. That is the mercy. The split second where thought stops is the doorway. Enter there, and everything we have argued becomes experience. Enter there, and you are no longer a student repeating lessons. You are a witness under grace whose very silence tells the truth the tongue cannot carry, and whose inner ear hears what the world cannot pronounce. My kingdom is not of this world. Now then, there comes a day in the life of a seeker when all the fine sentences no longer suffice. Up to that day we are students of truth, good students, devoted students, collectors and handlers of statements. We turn them like coins, we polish them, we pass them back and forth in our minds. We are seekers, sincere. We pray as if we could improve the human scene by better syllables. We study as if more accuracy would buy more safety. We practice as if the kingdom were a grade to achieve. All of that has its season. Do not despise it, but do not mistake it for the end. Because at some specific moment, 10 a.m. with your hands in the dishwater, or midnight with the house asleep and the body tired, or 3 a.m. when the old fear comes hunting, you will know something you cannot unknow. Not read it, not recite it, know it. In a split second, the scaffolding of words is taken down and the house is there. At that instant, the sentence, "My kingdom is not of this world," ceases to be a noble contradiction to memorize and becomes the atmosphere of your being. Nobody is responsible for arranging your life from that moment forward, not even you. This is the transition. Before, you handled truth as a tool. After, truth handles you as government. Before, prayer was your work. After, prayer is your consent. Before, you sought guidance as a series of answers. After, guidance is the nature of being itself, felt as rightness, not fetched as information. Before, you measured your spiritual health by outcomes in the calendar. After, the calendar remains, but its power to name you is gone. The burden is lifted at its root, not at its branches. You stop living under the coercion of cause and effect and begin to live under grace. Do you hear what I am saying? Not improved control, not a better managed life by a holier manager, not I used to worry with bad sentences, now I worry with sacred ones. No, a change of government, and when government changes, responsibility changes, not irresponsibility. Do your duty, keep your appointments, love your people, pay your bills, but you are released from self-government. The internal supervisor is retired. The whip is taken out of your hand. The question, how will I make this come out right, loses its jurisdiction. You do not become passive. You become unburdened. You do not become careless. You become cared for. I speak this way because I know the years of discipline that precede it. There are the seasons of reading, of practice, of failing and starting again, of sitting in the night coaxing the mind to be still, of temptation to think that volume will make the difference. More hours, more pages, more techniques. Keep quiet and go ahead and struggle. There is no shame in apprenticeship. But let me save you from a trap. The payoff for all of that is not mastery. The payoff is surrender. The fruit is not that you finally make demonstrations on command. The fruit is that the sense of my demonstration fades, and grace is discovered to be the only demonstrator. How will you recognize the moment? Relaxation appears where compulsion used to be. Without fanfare, something in you unclenches. The clock that lived behind your eyes stops barking orders. You are not collecting minutes for spiritual credit. You are not scanning the horizon for signs. You are not calculating how silence today will pay dividends on Thursday. You find, to your shock, that you do not care to argue with outcomes. It is not indifference. It is freedom. You have entered a country where the old currency is not legal tender. Anxiety will still attempt to visit, but it will have to pass through customs it cannot clear. For some, this arrival feels like a sudden opening. One night the walls give way and you wake different. For others, it is like the tide, inching forward, withdrawing, returning, until one morning you notice the shoreline has moved and you are standing where boats used to be. Do not compare. The question is not, was mine dramatic? The question is, has the government changed? Can you say with clean honesty, I am no longer operating my life on my own authority? If you can, even in part, then you have crossed. Now then, do not try to manufacture the transition. You cannot wrench it into being by doubling your reading or bargaining with your practice. You cannot make an hourglass spill faster by staring. You can only consent and keep consenting. Consent looks like this. You stop using truth to win. You stop using God to get. You stop praying at problems and start abiding in presence. You let the sentence end one word early and allow the unowned second to do its unowned work. And you stay faithful to that not because you saw fireworks last time, but because you have learned the way of music. We keep the rests as carefully as the notes until the melody plays of itself. One day, whether at 10 o'clock in a grocery line or at midnight in your bed or at 3 a.m. when the phone rings, you will hear yourself not reaching, and you will know. The old I that explains and arranges is not on duty. The hand is off the lever. The inner argument has lost its prosecutor, and in that ownerless second, you are lived. This is not romantic language. This is the plainest statement I can give you. You are lived. You notice that guidance has preceded your thought. that provision is coincident with the need, that right words speak themselves without rehearsal, and you are not excited, you are at rest. Rest is the sign, rest, not results. Please understand, the world may not applaud. Conditions may not arrange themselves into a brochure. Storms blow in this realm. Bodies age, nations quarrel. But you are under another government. You will be in the world, but not of it, and you will find that your presence is quietly healing to your own atmosphere before it is anything to anybody else. You will discover that not being your own shepherd is the end of the scattered heart, and little by little, or all at once, you will stop looking over your shoulder to see if it is still working, because nothing is working anymore. Being is I am. So let the discipline continue, but change its aim. You are not laboring for a bigger vocabulary. You are consenting to a transfer of sovereignty. You are not trying to improve the picture. You are leaving the frame. And when the moment comes, and it will, because truth is more faithful than your striving, you will step across a line that has no chalk on the floor and no trumpet in the air. You will know it by the simplest evidence in the world. You will relax, and having relaxed, you will not take back the wheel. Grace will have you. From then on, study becomes gratitude, practice becomes enjoyment, and life, still ordinary, still full of dishes and calendars, is no longer self-operated. It is lived by the kingdom that is not of this world. Now then, when the government changes, what changes? Not the theater, not the colors of the scenery. The play goes on in this world, with its weather and its calendars and its headlines. What changes is where you are standing, not your feet, your consciousness. My kingdom is not of this world, ceases to be a brave saying and becomes your location. And from that location there is an order, a government that needs no pushing. This is what I mean by automatic, not magic, not manipulation, the natural functioning of grace when the personal sense has yielded. Do not let the word automatic put fairy lights in your eyes. The toaster is automatic, but it will still burn bread if you do not attend. We are not speaking of levers and buttons. We are speaking of a principle as exact as mathematics and as gentle as breath. When you abide in the kingdom, certain harmonies appear without strain because there is nothing in you resisting them. Integrity expresses itself because there is no longer a bargain running. Right action appears because there is no longer a manager composing outcomes. Provision shows itself because there is no longer a beggar timing deliveries. Automatic means this: grace operates by being itself, and when you are not interfering, its being becomes your experience. Consider supply. Up to now, supply has been a contest between your plans and your fears. You have hustled, you have economized, you have begged heavens and banks, you have added and subtracted and checked again at 3 in the morning. That is the world's government. Under grace, supply becomes rightness disclosed. You find yourself moved to do the honest, simple, next thing. Make the call that is yours to make. Complete the work before you. Say no to the thing that is not yours. Give where you are led to give. And without drama, the next piece appears. Not always the pile you pictured. Often the quiet enoughness that meets the moment with dignity. You discover that your integrity refuses to shortchange another even in private, and that very integrity proves to be the open door of your own sufficiency, like the bank teller whose hand automatically returns the extra dollar because something in him cannot do otherwise. So you, under grace, act out of principle without calculation. And in that atmosphere, the universe has nothing to correct. Provision is the echo of principle lived. Now, the body. Health under the world is a duel. Me versus condition, me versus time, me versus heredity. Under grace, the body ceases to be a battleground and becomes a servant. I do not mean a perfect picture painted on flesh. I mean the body as instrument under new management. When the personal I lays down its whip, the body is allowed to follow peace. Muscles unclench because there is no argument to brace against. Breath deepens without technique because there is no owner hurrying it. Rest comes without guilt because there is no ledger to balance before sleep. Sensible care appears not as fear dressed up as nutrition, but as simple love for the instrument you have been given to use. Health, in this sense, is not a prize snatched from an enemy. It is the natural tone of life, functioning without a foreman. There may still be weather in the body, strength and weakness, warm days and cold, but the hysteria is gone. And without hysteria, the wisdom for each moment arrives. Relationships, too, change government. Under the world's rule, people are utilities or threats, means to an end or obstacles to control. Under grace, persons cease to be categories and become presents. You stop hiring and firing your loved ones in your heart. You no longer require them to act out your safety. You meet them as you meet a dawn, received, not possessed. Quarrels lose oxygen when you are no longer prosecuting your case. Boundaries appear as simple no's without bitterness because you are not selling your soul for applause. Kindness, which used to be a tactic, becomes uncalculated, and curiously, without your hand arranging, harmony shows itself more often, not because you scripted better, but because you stopped using people. Where use ends, blessing begins. Where blessing begins, the air clears. Automatic. Decisions. Here is where many of you fret because the world taught you that the future is a maze and the winners are the best guessers. Under grace, guidance replaces guessing. Planning anxiety fades because the premise that fueled it, I must secure tomorrow, is not believed. You do not become careless, you become led. The right step is known as rightness, not as a projected advantage. Sometimes the rightness is to wait. Sometimes it is to move quickly. Sometimes it is to write the letter. Sometimes it is to tear it up. How do you know? Not by lists of pros and cons multiplied until your soul is smothered. You know because the kingdom is now, and in now there is light enough for the next step. The whole road does not appear. It never did. But the foot is guided to the stone that will hold it. You discover that no is as sacred as yes, that closing a door can be as obedient as opening one, and that delay under guidance is not danger, it is accuracy. Do not confuse this with controlling the picture. We are not saying, live under grace and your stocks will rise, your body will glow, your children will phone every Sunday. That is the world's brochure. We have already thrown that away. What we are saying is sterner and softer. When grace governs, life ceases to be forced into harmony, and harmony appears as the unforced outflow of abiding. The pictures may still swirl, a diagnosis may come, a contract may fail, a friend may misunderstand, but you are not in the swirl. You are in the kingdom, and from there, the necessary words arrive, the necessary actions are taken, the necessary courage is present, the necessary enoughness is revealed. It is not a promise for tomorrow, it is a fact now. Think of breath. You do not manufacture it, you do not run behind your lungs pushing. The body breathes because life is. When you cease to interfere, when you stop holding and counting and bargaining, breath takes you. That is automatic, or think of music. The melody is not willed into beauty by gritting your teeth at the keys. It is allowed by keeping the rests as faithfully as the notes, by not rushing, by not dragging, by trusting the measure. That is automatic. So with grace, you offer consent, you keep the rests, you obey the simple rightness, and the harmony that is native to the kingdom plays itself into your affairs without strain. Now then, a warning that preserves the purity of this. Do not turn to grace as a tool to get results in the human scene. The instant you do, you have left the kingdom for a vending machine, and you will receive coins, not life. We do not abide to fix appearances. We abide because God is, because being is, because truth is present only now and nowhere else. And in that abiding, what needs to be added is added, what needs to be removed is removed, and what needs to be endured is endured without the old terror. That is the change. Fear's engine is silenced. The hand is off the lever. You are lived. So make this your quiet practice. Stop forcing harmony. Enter the now. Let guidance precede your move. Let integrity be your commerce. Let kindness be your policy. Let rest be your signature. Do the next right thing and leave the rest unargued. In that government, supply appears as sufficiency. Health appears as ease. Guidance appears as clarity, all automatic, because grace does not learn how to govern. It only waits for us to stop pretending we do. Still in the world, yes, but not of it. And because not of it, you will find that your very presence becomes a stillness in rooms where others are rushing, a soft answer in conversations where others are selling, and a steady light on paths where others are guessing, not by effort, by government, by the kingdom that is not of this world. Now then, grace does not flow through a divided consciousness. It cannot. My kingdom is not of this world means there are no parties in God, no sects, no ours and theirs. The instant you divide life into holy persons and unholy persons into the worthy and the enemy, you have stepped back into the human scene where conflict is the air, and revelation will not waste itself defending your side. Those that worship God must worship in spirit and in truth. Truth is indivisible. Spirit is impartial. The government of the kingdom cannot operate in a mind carrying concealed resentments and sacred prejudices. Do you remember Peter? A sheet was lowered in his consciousness, full of creatures he had refused his whole life, things he had been trained to name unclean. And the voice said, "Rise, kill, and eat." "Not so, Lord, not so. I have never." 3 times the sheet fell. 3 times the voice answered, "What God has cleansed, call not thou common or unclean." We are not dealing with a menu. We are dealing with a mind. The Holy Spirit was not reforming diet. It was cleansing perception. In the same breath there came a knock at the door. Gentiles, the ones Peter's world had labeled outside, and the Spirit said, "Go with them," doubting nothing. He went, and before he could finish his respectable sermon, the Spirit fell on all in the room, without passport, without pedigree. Call nothing common, call no one unclean. Not a slogan, a requirement. Now then, see how this is your life. Your sheet is lowered daily. Out of the folds appear faces you have filed in private drawers. The competitor who undercut you, the neighbor who mocks you, the politician whose voice makes you tense, the relative whose name tightens your jaw. And in the old training something rises, respectable and religious. Not so, Lord, not them. Bless my circle, keep us safe from them, help us win. That is not prayer, that is tribal strategy with God's name as a banner. That is the human scene reciting Bible verses, and in that posture do not expect revelation. The kingdom is not sectarian. There is no God for your team. Nobody has ever prayed another person out of the family of God and stayed in the light. Look at the subtlety of worldly prayer. It wears church clothes. Father, grant that our projects succeed and theirs fail. Open doors for our people and close theirs. Convert my spouse to my view. That is not consenting to the kingdom. That is conscripting God as a campaign manager. You have left spirit for sides. You have returned to the clamor where events are the evidence and victory is the proof text. If God governed the human scene in that way, history would read differently. The bombs would have stopped mid-air. The cheater's hand would have frozen at the cash drawer. But the world is governed by its beliefs, its fears, its lusts, its laws. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Do you see? You cannot drag the world's contests into the sanctuary and hope for quiet. You must lay them at the door. What, then, is prayer in this matter? Beholding. Not approving evil, not romanticizing harm. Beholding. You refuse the label that shrinks a soul to your grievance. You stand one breath beyond your story and acknowledge presence is here as the life of that one. You do not do this to tame them into agreement. You do this because in the kingdom there are not two lives, 3 minds, 7 tribes. There is one, and wherever you behold the one, the atmosphere changes. Compassion is the evidence that you have touched the other realm, not pity, not superiority stroking its own tolerance. Compassion, clear, quiet seeing that relinquishes the weapon of contempt. In that seeing, guidance becomes possible. In that seeing, the next right word is given or withheld. In that seeing, you are protected, not by the defeat of another, but by the absence of hatred in you. Try it where it costs you something. The next time your mind reaches to compose a prayer against a person, stop one word early. Let the sentence fall open. Enter the split second where thought ceases its prosecution. In that unowned instant, allow the simple truth to be present. God is indivisible. What God hath cleansed, do not call unclean. If a sentence helps, use it and release it. Father, thou art the life of all. Then hush. Do not bargain. Do not add a clause about their behavior. Hush until the impulse to win loses oxygen. In that hush, the kingdom governs. You will feel the temperature lower. You will find your jaw unclench. You will be given the dignity to say no where no is needed, and the mercy to bless where blessing is your assignment. Not because you chose to be noble, but because you stepped out of the tribal mind. Now then, this does not turn you into a doormat. The kingdom is not mush. It is government. Under grace you may vote, you may oppose, you may draw boundaries, you may call a wrong, but you will not curse persons. You will not nurse an enemy. You will not decorate your anger with scripture and call it zeal. You will act as one who lives under another law. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor, and neighbor in the kingdom has no fence. This is purification, not a better attitude, a different realm. The sheet keeps falling until nothing in you insists on keeping a private blacklist. When Peter yielded, the Spirit fell before his arguments could finish. So with you. Yield the division, and revelation outruns your explanations. You will discover that the moment you stop praying against people, you begin to pray at all. For until then it was only fear talking to itself about tactics. When you behold, you worship. And worship is the door by which my kingdom, not of this world, is felt as the only country there is. Still in this world, yes, but not of its feuds. And because not of its feuds, your very presence becomes a quiet blessing, an atmosphere in which others are not measured and dismissed, but met and sometimes without your knowing why, healed. Now then, let us be very plain. Nobody can do your inner work for you. Not your teacher, not your spouse, not your friends, not this room, and do not punish them for failing at it. Stop narrating your struggle as an identity. Stop recruiting sympathy as if that were food. It is not food. It is a sugar high that collapses you back into the very self you are outgrowing. Keep quiet and go ahead and struggle. There is no disgrace in struggle. There is disgrace in converting struggle into a personality you ask others to carry. Nobody will carry it, and if they try, it will make both of you smaller. My kingdom is not of this world. Therefore its practice cannot be performed by an audience. Take no thought for tomorrow. Hear it, not as a slogan, as a law of the kingdom. My kingdom is not of this world means not of time. Planning may occur. Put the milk on the list. Set the appointment. Lay out your clothes if you must. Planning is not tomorrow. Anxious living is tomorrow. The moment you begin to inhabit a future picture, you have left the kingdom. Can you imagine trying to live a minute from now? A minute from now is a vacuum. You cannot breathe there. You cannot pray there. You can only worry there. And worry is a confession. I'm doing this without God. We are finished with that confession. We will not speak it. We will not think it. The instant you feel the tug of tomorrow, the tightening in the chest, the speed in the mind, the script that begins to audition scenes, drop it, not after a chapter. Now, here is the sequence. Use it 100 times a day if need be. When fear signals, do not debate it, identify it. Here is the confession that I plan to live without God. That is all fear is. Next, find its fuel. It is always time, always a yesterday rehearsed or a tomorrow manufactured. See the projection, name it. I have left now. Then return. How? By withdrawing one word early from your sentence. Stop one clause before the plan. Hush. Allow the split second in which thought stops its prosecution. Do not try to make silence. Consent to it. In that split second, something not of you but as you will be present. Grace. You will feel it as a slight loosening in the body, a small widening in the chest, a drop of warmth behind the eyes, or sometimes no sign at all except the end of hurry. Rest there. 10 seconds is as good as an hour if you do not rush to harvest it. Then proceed with the next rightness in front of you, not the fantasy down the road. Do not wait for fireworks. This is mathematics, not melodrama. 2 times 2 is 4, even if the room is bored. The principle does not seek your applause. It seeks your consistency. You do not demand proof from music before you keep time. You keep the measure until the melody appears of itself. So with this, notice fear. Name the time projection. Return to now. Enter the split second. Rest in grace. Act from rightness again and again and again. 70 times 7 before supper if needed. The kingdom is never yesterday and never tomorrow. It is always the next obedience now. Give up complaining. If you must fall, fall. But do not paint your fall as a mural and charge admission. Complaint is time in disguise. It is yesterday rehearsed for effect, or tomorrow preloaded with dread. Either way, it is exile. There is no grace in it because there is no now in it. I am not asking you to pretend the weather is fine. I am asking you to remain in the kingdom while the weather passes. Speak what must be spoken. This hurts. This is difficult. And then shut the door to commentary and return to practice. Nobody is ennobled by hearing your catalog of grievances. Nobody. Nobody. And you are diminished every time you recite it, because you teach your own ears that you are a character in a tragedy rather than consciousness under grace. Some of you will say, but do I not need support? Of course. Let those who love you, but do not outsource your government. There is a point beyond which no one may enter. That point is now. The straight and narrow is a path only one can walk, because it is not a path in space. It is an altitude of consciousness. When you stand there, support becomes sweet and unnecessary at the same time. You are grateful. You are not leaning. You hear, you receive, you thank, and you return. Again. Train like this. Set no condition on obedience. Do not tell the principal, if I feel better in 5 minutes, I will trust you. Trust is obedience without a contract. Give the principal what is due the principal. Faithfulness, in traffic, in lines, at 3 a.m. when the old fear prowls, in meetings where someone else's tempo wants to run your blood, use the sequence. Do not wait to be dramatic or pure. Do not measure your progress by the quietness of the room. Measure it by your return. Every return is victory. Every return is a transfer of government. Every return says, I am not of this world. Now then, this is tough love, because love must be tough. With the lie that time is your master. Give up tomorrow when you plan with an open hand. Then release the calendar from its throne. Give up complaining. When the impulse bites, bite your tongue before you feed the story. And when you fail at both, do not create a third sin by condemning yourself. Return again. The practice is not to perform perfectly. The practice is to re-enter the kingdom in the very place you notice you have left it. Do this until rest is the native tone of your day. Do this until decisions present themselves already softened by guidance. Do this until, without your noticing when it happened, grace is your government and the old foreman has no keys to the building. You will still be in the world. You will still buy milk and keep appointments, but you will not be of it, and because you are not of it, your life will begin to carry a quiet permission for others to give up tomorrow, give up complaint, and return, not to you, to the kingdom, now. Now then, we have come to the simple end of a long argument. The world does not have to be understood to be met with peace. It does not have to be repaired for you to be right with God. The confusion ended the moment you ceased aiming your prayer at the scene and turned it as an entrance into the kingdom. My kingdom is not of this world. Hear it now as location, not philosophy. When you are located there, the false target vanishes. You are no longer looking into events to read off the face of God. You are entering God and letting events be events. The relief you feel is not an idea. It is government changing. Do not make of this a retirement from life. You will not disappear into clouds. You will be seen more, not less. Present, not preoccupied. Simple, not evasive. You will answer phones. You will keep promises. You will do your day's work and pay your bills. Only this. You will not do them as a character hustling for safety. You will do them as one under grace. And because you are not living by the scene's terms, the scene loses its power to dictate your temperature. You carry weather, quiet weather. Others will not know why their shoulders drop in your presence. Leave it unannounced. It is not your personality. It is the fact that you have stopped dragging tomorrow through the door. Outwardly, what changes is tone. You are less reactive, more accurate. Your words become fewer and stronger. You will not fix people. You will listen. You will not sell your view. You will witness to presence by being unhurried in a room that measures importance by speed. In meetings that used to inflame you, you will wait the extra second until the split second of silence gives you the word or withholds it. When you do speak, you will notice that it does not argue. It locates, and locating is blessing. Children sense it. Animals sense it. Strangers on a bench sense it. They cannot explain. They only know that for a few minutes they were not being used. Now then, here is your commission. Be a blessing, not a combatant. Be guided, not driven. Be present, not projected. Wherever you go today, take the government of grace with you as your only credential. Bring no sides, carry no private enemies. Refuse the temptation to turn rooms into tribunals. Set the temperature instead of reporting it. A thermometer reports, a thermostat governs. Do not correct people with heat. Correct your own residence. The kingdom is the only address from which blessing travels. If you find yourself slipping into the world's courtroom, leave the case incomplete. Step into the split second where the judge has no voice. Enter and then move. Make of your day a series of small entries. Before you reply to an email, enter. Before you knock on a door, enter. Before you pick up a crying child or answer a critic, enter. The entry is not a speech. It is a yielding. Father, here. And then do the next rightness without commentary. Sometimes the rightness will be a word. Sometimes a silence. sometimes a no that is not defended, sometimes a yes that is not advertised. This is ministry. Nobody ordained you. Nobody needs to. The kingdom in you is ordination enough. Do not be surprised that storms still pass through the human picture. They will. Grief will visit. Headlines will clamor. Aches will knock. The difference is that you will not pack your bags and go with them. The kingdom is now and only now. In now, the grace for this breath is complete. In now, the wisdom for this step is exact. If help is to be given, it will be given through you cleanly. Bread, not stones, presence, not pressure. And when you are not led to act, you will not writhe under guilt. Government has decided. Rest your obedience in that. At home, this will look like ordinary kindness, without strategy. You will not angle for position in your own house. You will not keep score. Boundaries will be firm without heat. Apologies will be short and real. Gratitude will come unannounced because you are not living with an imaginary future guest list. In the marketplace, this will look like honesty whether or not anyone is watching. Promptness without self-importance, patience with clerks and servants, because you are not rehearsing a play in which you are the center. In traffic, this will look like space. In crisis, this will look like a face that does not transmit panic. Some will accuse you of indifference because you do not mirror their fear. Do not answer the accusation. You are not indifferent, you are governed. Some will test your quiet to see if it is weakness. Do not stiffen to prove your strength. The kingdom does not prove itself, it manifests. And when it manifests as your steady tone, as your refusal to curse, as your ability to say no without punishing, that is enough sermon for a year. You will find that opportunities for open speech are given to those who have no need to speak. You will be asked for counsel because you do not push it. Let it be so. Now then, the refrain that brought us to this moment is the refrain by which we live. My kingdom is not of this world. Therefore, prayer for you is never an argument with life. Prayer is entry, now. And from that entry, let your life become its evidence in the world. Not trophies, evidence. The peaceful handling of a difficult hour, the brave consent to an unknown step, the refusal to make an enemy out of a neighbor or a headline, the sweetness that slips into your voice when there is nothing to gain. All of it says silently, the government has changed. Still in the world, yes, not of it. And because not of it, you are a quiet blessing wherever you are sent. Go in that, not to manufacture results, but to reveal the realm that already is. Enter now, live now, let now do its holy work through you.